And so we return to the heart of it, why presence matters so much, and why it isn't just a personal comfort, it's a foundation. Because when you're present, you stop feeding the unconscious currents that drive so much of human behavior. You stop living from old conditioning. You stop treating your emotions like commander. You begin to recognize that much of what we call reality is actually interpretation, thought, memory, fear, habit, played back through the mind until it feels like truth. Spiritual presence interrupts that replay. It creates a pause long enough for wisdom to enter. And in that pause, you can choose. You can choose your words instead of letting anger grab the microphone. You can choose patience instead of revenge. You can choose compassion without abandoning boundaries. You can choose clarity without needing to dominate. That is how reason becomes spiritual, and spirituality becomes real. Not theoretical, not performative, real. The world we want, deliberate, free, fulfilling, depends on this, people learning to be inwardly governed. Because without inner governance, no external law is enough. A society can build regulations, but if individuals are still driven by fear and ego, the regulations become obstacles to game, not guardians of life. Inner governance looks like small disciplines practiced consistently. It looks like noticing when you're trying to be right instead of trying to understand. It looks like catching yourself before you escalate. It looks like apologizing faster than you defend. It looks like doing the hard thing, telling the truth kindly. It looks like resting without guilt. It looks like choosing the long path when the short path is tempting. These are not just good habits. They are spiritual actions. Because they shape the energy of a life. They change what you bring into relationships. They change what kind of atmosphere you create wherever you go, home, work, community. And atmosphere is contagious. People either relax around you because you're stable, or they tense because you're unpredictable. That's the hidden power of presence. It steadies the field. Now, if enough people choose this steadiness, something quietly remarkable happens in culture. Consciousness rises. Not in a mystical way you can measure on a spreadsheet, but in the way decisions begin to change. People start asking different questions. They start asking, does this reduce suffering? They start asking, is this aligned with dignity? They start asking, what are the consequences for the most vulnerable? They start asking, will this build something that lasts, or will it just make noise for a while? That's reason guided by spirit. And purpose becomes visible in everyday life. Purpose is not something you wait for, like a letter from the universe. Purpose is something you participate in. It is the direction of your attention repeated until it becomes a path. For many people, purpose gets confused with identity, like, I am this job, or, I am this role, or, I am this ideology. But spiritual presence reveals a deeper layer. You are not only your role. You are the consciousness choosing what to do with that role. That means purpose can change without breaking you. You can pivot. You can grow. You can repair. You can reinvent, without losing your core. And that's what freedom feels like. Not doing anything you want, but living from what you truly value. In a chaos-driven world, people experience freedom as escape. They escape into distraction, into consumption, into arguments, into denial. They escape into substances, into doom scrolling, into fantasies of control. That kind of freedom is temporary, and it leaves people more fragmented. In a deliberate world, freedom feels like return. Return to the present. Return to your body. Return to your values. Return to your ability to respond rather than react. When you can respond, you can love better. When you can love better, relationships heal. When relationships heal, communities stabilize. When communities stabilize, societies become capable of rebuilding. That's the chain reaction again, but upward this time. Now, let's talk about what a world, guided by reason, actually does differently. It doesn't only change politics. It changes how people treat information. It creates norms where truth matters. Where evidence is respected. Where propaganda is recognized as a form of mind poisoning. Where leaders are questioned rather than worshipped. It changes the meaning of debate. In a reason-based culture, disagreement is not a threat to your identity. You can say, "I see it differently," without turning the other person into an enemy. You can be challenged without collapsing into rage or humiliation. That emotional stability is spiritual maturity. It's the ability to hold tension without turning it into cruelty. And that's essential, because when the old chaos machine collapses, whether slowly or suddenly, people will still be carrying unresolved pain. Some will seek revenge. Some will seek chaos again because chaos feels familiar. Others will seek denial because denial feels easier. So the question becomes, what do you do with the moment when the world is changing? Spiritual presence teaches you to meet change without losing yourself. It teaches you to grieve without destroying. It teaches you to notice anger without worshipping it. It teaches you to honor boundaries without hardening into hatred. It teaches you to build while acknowledging what was broken. This is where the grounded spiritual tone matters. Spirituality is not a cloud. It's not just vibes. It's the capacity to do the inner work that makes outer work possible. So if you're waiting for some external event that automatically fixes everything, the universe might be waiting for your inner shift first. Because the world you create is not only made of laws and infrastructure. It's made of people's attention. Where you put attention becomes your reality. Attention is creative. Attention shapes choices. Choices build habits. Habits become culture. Culture becomes destiny. When people give attention to violence, whether directly or indirectly through entertainment, rage, and sensationalism, they train their nervous systems to live in conflict. Even if they never pick up a weapon, they become part of the violence ecosystem. They become fuel for the machine. But when people give attention to reason, reflection, learning, truth, mutual care, they train their nervous systems for stability. That stability spreads. Now, what about true purpose in the universe? A calm, spiritual answer is this: the universe is not asking you to be perfect. It's asking you to be present enough to become more aligned with life. More aligned with love. More aligned with truth. More aligned with growth. Purpose is the direction that increases life. Not only your life, life in others. Life in your community. Life in the future. Purpose is the thread that connects your actions to a larger good. And yes, you can feel it when you live that way. It doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it feels quiet. Sometimes it feels like duty. Sometimes it feels like service that doesn't get applause. But it feels true. And truth in the body has a quality, an inner clarity. It doesn't feel like performance. It feels like sincerity. It feels like you can breathe again. So here's a spiritual practice you can build into your day: simple, deliberate, grounded. Before you speak, breathe once. Before you react, name the emotion inside you. Before you choose, ask, does this reduce harm or increase it? Before you rest, ask, have I been honest with myself today? These questions sound small, but they train the mind to cooperate with spirit. They turn daily life into a form of meditation, movement of awareness through real situations. And when enough people do that, systems change, because systems are made of humans. Humans are made of attention. Attention is made of choices. Choices are made in moments. This is why presence matters at scale. Now let's bring it to the practical edge, because spiritual people often get mocked as if it's all thoughts. But the spiritual path, at its deepest, is embodied. It's action aligned with values. So what does building a deliberate world look like in practical terms? It looks like communities investing in mental health and conflict resolution. It looks like education teaching critical thinking, emotional regulation, and ethics, not just memorization. It looks like workplaces rewarding responsibility and repair, not intimidation and silence. It looks like technology designed to protect well-being, not to exploit weakness. It looks like food and water treated as sacred resources, not as disposable profit opportunities. It looks like leaders held to standards that prioritize human dignity. Notice what all of that shares. It's the replacement of extraction with stewardship. Stewardship is a spiritual stance. It's an attitude of caretaking, not ownership. Reason is the method. Love is the motivation. Presence is the foundation. That's what makes the future different. Because the chaos machine doesn't only collapse from outside pressure. It collapses from inside emptiness, when people stop believing the lies, stop participating in fear, and stop accepting cruelty as normal. And that is already happening, even if slowly. People everywhere are tired of living as separate, anxious fragments. They want meaning. They want coherence. They want their lives to feel intentional again. So if you want your own path to fit into this larger shift, here's a gentle but firm invitation. Choose one area of your life where you will stop outsourcing your values. One area where you will stop letting fear decide. One area where you will practice truth consistently. It could be how you handle conflict in relationships. It could be how you consume media. It could be how you speak about others. It could be how you spend money on what you actually believe matters. It could be how you treat your own mind. Notice, breathe, return. One area. Because the future is built by repeats, and your nervous system learns through practice. And when you practice long enough, you become someone who can stand in uncertainty without becoming violent. You become someone who can hold complexity without becoming cynical. You become someone who can receive truth without collapsing into denial. That's how peace becomes possible. So as this series continues, remember the arc. First, we woke up to the chaos machine and why it kept running. Then, we began rebuilding inwardly: presence, reason, coherence. Now, we move outward in a way that is steady, deliberate, and spiritually alive. Not with fantasies of instant salvation. With the quiet, disciplined work of becoming the kind of human the world actually needs. And if you're wondering where the purpose fits into all of this, here it is in one line. Your purpose is to become a clear channel for life, so that, wherever you go, life becomes safer, kinder, and more possible. That's not just inspirational. That's the function of a spiritually present human. And if enough of us accept that function, if enough of us live deliberately enough to be trustworthy, then the coming earth won't feel like a battlefield with new flags. It will feel like home. A place where freedom is not escape, but alignment. Where life is not random struggle, but meaningful participation. Where reason guides love. Where spirit lives in the choices we make when nobody is watching. And that, right there, is how humanity grows into its true purpose. Not by conquering the world, but by learning how to belong to it consciously. So here's the recap. The chaos machine runs on fear, distraction, and internal contradiction. But a different earth begins when we interrupt the cycle, through spiritual presence, disciplined reason, and deliberate living. When we align our inner world with our actions, we create coherence. And when enough people do that, culture shifts, and purpose becomes real, not just something you feel, but something you practice. Now choose one thing you'll embody this week. A moment of presence before you react, a commitment to truth over performance, or a small act of stewardship where you live. Because the future isn't built by waiting, it's built by repeats. If this message landed with you, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who's ready for a calmer, more deliberate way to live. I love you all. Peace.